She tried to kick me out, but what I found changed everything. This title hints at drama and intrigue, making me curious about the unexpected twist and what exactly was uncovered. It also creates a sense of suspense that would prompt me to click to learn more. The morning was quiet as usual, but today, everything would change. As Sophia stepped into the living room, there was an unfamiliar tension in the air. Marjorie, her mother-in-law, sat in her favorite chair with a stern expression. "You need to leave," Marjorie said flatly, her voice cold. "You're just a stranger now." Sophia froze, her heart racing. She had been living with Marjorie ever since her beloved husband Daniel passed away. The thought of leaving her alone, especially after all the financial and emotional support she had provided, seemed unthinkable. For over a year, Sophia had been the one to care for Marjorie, managing everything from her medical bills to the monthly rent payments, all while trying to rebuild her life after losing her husband. Yet now, in a single sentence, Marjorie was asking her to leave the house. Why? What could have led to this? Was this simply a moment of grief or something deeper? The words hung in the air, and Sophia could only stand there, stunned and confused, wondering if her sacrifices had been in vain. There was more to this story than she could ever have imagined, and the truth was about to unfold. Sophia was 40 years old, an elementary school teacher who had devoted her life to caring for children. She had always dreamed of having a family of her own, but unfortunately, she and Daniel were never able to have children. Despite this, Sophia poured all her love and attention into her work and her family, particularly after Daniel's sudden death. Her husband, Daniel, was 42 when he passed away, and they had been married for 12 years. They had met early in their careers as teachers and shared a dream of opening a learning center for children in need. Daniel had always been the steady rock in their relationship, reliable and compassionate. His sudden death left Sophia not only heartbroken, but also isolated, without the man who had been her greatest support. Marjorie, Sophia's mother-in-law, was in her late 60s and had recently lost her husband. The grief of losing her son was overwhelming, and she became increasingly dependent on Sophia. However, despite her vulnerability, Marjorie's actions were often unpredictable. Her financial independence, secured by her late husband's inheritance, made her difficult to navigate, and yet she relied on Sophia for everything, emotionally and financially. Carol, Sophia's sister-in-law, was a few years older than Daniel. She appeared to be a supportive family member, but Sophia quickly began to notice a shift in her behavior after Daniel's death. Carol constantly asked for money under the guise of helping with family matters, yet her extravagant lifestyle suggested something was amiss. Sophia had always been careful, but her growing suspicion about Carol's true intentions would soon lead to shocking revelations. In this complicated web of family dynamics, Sophia found herself torn between her responsibilities as a caregiver and the unsettling realization that things were not as they seemed. After Daniel's sudden passing, Sophia found herself adrift in a sea of grief and uncertainty. The man she had shared her life with was gone, leaving behind only memories, a sense of emptiness, and the weight of unspoken dreams. It was a devastating loss, and no amount of time or therapy could heal the pain. In an attempt to heal and provide some comfort, Sophia made the decision to move in with Marjorie. It was meant to be a joint effort, helping Marjorie through her grief while finding a way to heal together. Yet the reality of living under one roof with a grieving mother-in-law was far more challenging than Sophia had anticipated. Marjorie, though kind, became increasingly dependent on Sophia, both emotionally and financially. To ensure that Marjorie could maintain her independence and comfort, Sophia made the choice to send $4,000 every month for her mother-in-law's living expenses. It wasn't an easy decision, especially with Sophia's own financial responsibilities. But With a sense of duty and compassion, she continued to contribute, hoping it would bring some peace to their household. But as time passed, Sophia began to feel a gnawing unease. The months rolled by, and despite her sacrifices, Marjorie seemed distant, almost indifferent. Was she truly grateful for Sophia's support? Or was it all being taken for granted? Sophia's suspicions began to grow, and the tension in the house started to mount as she began questioning whether her efforts were making any difference at all. Carol, Sophia's sister-in-law, was no stranger to asking for help. She visited the house frequently, always presenting her requests with a veneer of concern. "I just need a little more to cover the tuition," she'd say, or "Mom needs help with groceries this month." The excuses changed, but the need for money never seemed to end. At first, Sophia thought little of it. Family was supposed to help one another, right? But as the requests grew more frequent, Sophia couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Carol had always been lavish with her spending, often showing up in new clothes or jewelry, and Sophia couldn't help but notice how carefree she was, despite her constant pleas for financial aid. What was even more troubling was Marjorie's unquestioning compliance. Each time Carol came, Marjorie was quick to hand over money without hesitation, despite the mounting strain on their finances. Sophia couldn't understand why Marjorie, who had been so independent in her younger years, allowed herself to be manipulated so easily. As Carol continued to drain their resources, Sophia's suspicions began to shift into certainty. There was more to Carol's requests than met the eye. It wasn't just about money, it was about control. Carol was beginning to exploit Marjorie's grief, and Sophia was left wondering, was Carol after more than just financial help? Was she trying to take everything from them? Tension built between Sophia and Carol, and as Sophia started questioning Marjorie's choices, a chasm opened between what was supposed to be a supportive family bond. The truth was becoming harder to ignore. Carol had an agenda, and it was far from innocent. The air was thick with tension as Sophia sat in the living room, trying to focus on the small tasks she had been doing for Marjorie. It was an ordinary day, or so Sophia thought, until Marjorie suddenly spoke up. Her voice trembled with an unfamiliar tone as she said, "Sophia, I think it's time for you to leave. I want Carol to move in." Sophia froze, a cold chill running down her spine. The words hit harder than any blow she had imagined. The woman she had devoted her life to supporting, financially and emotionally, was asking her to leave. It felt like the earth had shifted beneath her feet. How could this happen? After all the sacrifices, all the months of providing for Marjorie's needs, was this how it ended? Confusion swirled within Sophia's mind, but she fought to keep her voice steady. "Why, Marjorie? I've been here for you. I've done everything I can." Marjorie's gaze softened for a moment, but her words were resolute. "Carol is my daughter, Sophia. She needs to be here with me now. It's what's best for me. And for her." The emotional weight of those words sank in, and a tightness gripped Sophia's chest. It wasn't just a request. It felt like a betrayal. Was she not enough? Did her sacrifices mean nothing? The pain of losing Daniel was one thing, but now she was losing the only family she had left. The realization struck her like a punch to the gut. Everything she had worked for was slipping away. The next few days were filled with an emotional storm that left Sophia struggling to hold on. She couldn't fathom leaving, not after everything she'd done for Marjorie. But how could she stay when it felt like she was being pushed out? Determined to change Marjorie's mind, Sophia sat down with her, trying to appeal to the years of love and care they had shared. "I'm the one who's been here for you, who's supported you," Sophia pleaded. "Please don't let Carol take everything from us. I want to stay and care for you." But deep down, Sophia could feel the walls Marjorie had built between them. Marjorie was distant, almost cold, as if her grief had created a wall that Sophia couldn't break through. She was torn between her deep love for Marjorie and the overwhelming feeling that she was no longer wanted. It was then that Carol, who had been lingering in the background, stepped in with her usual calm but calculated demeanor. "You're just making things harder, Sophia. I'm the one who should be here with Mom. It's what she needs," Carol said, her words dripping with manipulation. The truth was clear now. Carol wasn't just taking advantage of Marjorie's grief, but also trying to push Sophia out. Every word Carol spoke was a dagger, but Sophia refused to show weakness. She made the painful decision to stay, for now. But the emotional toll it took on her was heavy. With each passing day, she felt more like an outsider in the house she once called home. And as she struggled to hold on to her place in the family, the questions remained. How much longer could she endure? And what would happen next? The morning Sophia was cleaning the study, she came across something unexpected. An envelope that was tucked behind a stack of old papers. It wasn't something she had seen before, and the handwriting on the front was unmistakable. Daniel's. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to find anything from him, especially now. With trembling hands, Sophia opened the envelope. Inside, there were several documents, bank statements, photos, and a few official-looking papers. As she sifted through them, her eyes widened. The photos were of Carol, in various locations, and the bank statements revealed something even more disturbing. There were withdrawals that didn't make sense, payments to unknown accounts, and most shockingly, large sums of money transferred that weren't explained. As Sophia pieced it together, the truth became clear. Daniel had suspected something about Carol. The final document was a report from a private investigator. The investigator's findings were unsettling. It turned out Carol had been siphoning off money that Sophia had been sending to Marjorie for months. The withdrawals were linked to Carol's personal accounts, and there was even evidence that she had manipulated Marjorie into accepting the funds, all while pretending to be the good daughter looking after her mother. Sophia's stomach twisted as she absorbed the gravity of the situation. Daniel's fears had been real. He'd known something was wrong, and though he hadn't been able to protect Sophia from this betrayal, he had tried to warn her. The realization hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. All the money she'd been sending to help Marjorie wasn't going to her at all. It was being misused by Carol for her own gain. The shock of this revelation was overwhelming. Daniel had kept it a secret, hoping it would never come to light. But now the truth was in her hands. This wasn't just about money. It was about the years of manipulation and deceit. Daniel had done everything in his power to protect both Sophia and Marjorie from Carol's greed. But now Sophia had to act. The question was, what could she do with this knowledge? How could she protect the people she loved from the web of lies Carol had spun around them? The weight of the truth hung heavily over Sophia. She couldn't sit idly by and let Carol's deceit continue to destroy her family. But she knew she couldn't confront Carol alone. Not yet. The first person she needed to talk to was Dave, Carol's husband. If anyone could provide clarity, it would be him. Determined to get answers, Sophia arranged to meet Dave in a quiet cafe, far from the chaos of their everyday lives. When he arrived, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He had no idea what was about to unfold. Sophia slid the envelope across the table, her heart racing. "Dave," she began, her voice steady but firm, "I need you to look at this. It's about Carol." As Dave opened the envelope and began looking through the documents, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. The photos, the bank statements, the private investigator's report, it was all there, laid out in black and white. His hands shook as he looked at the evidence, his face paling. "I never knew," he muttered, staring at the financial details. "I swear, I had no idea she was doing this." Sophia's frustration bubbled to the surface, but she kept her composure. Dave, this isn't just about money. Carol has been taking advantage of everyone, including her own mother. You need to do something about it. This has to stop now. Dave sat back in his chair, his mind clearly racing. It was hard to believe, but the evidence was irrefutable. He had always trusted Carol, but now it was clear she had been hiding something much darker. After a long pause, Dave finally spoke. We have to confront her. I won't let her destroy what's left of this family. The decision was made. They would confront Carol together. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the only way to stop the lies from continuing. Sophia could feel the tension building in her chest. The showdown was coming, and it was going to be one that would change everything. As they prepared to face Carol, Sophia steeled herself. She had no idea what the confrontation would lead to, but she couldn't turn back now. Carol had to be held accountable for the pain she had caused, and Sophia would make sure that she paid for her betrayal. The drive to Marjorie's house felt like it lasted an eternity. Sophia's thoughts were racing, but she kept her composure, knowing the confrontation ahead would be one of the hardest things she had ever done. Dave sat quietly beside her, visibly tense. This was a moment that would determine the fate of their family, and neither of them knew what would happen once they stepped through the door. When they arrived, Marjorie was sitting in the living room, looking weary. Carol, however, wasn't there yet. Sophia took a deep breath before addressing Marjorie. We need to talk, she said, her voice steady but heavy with intent. Soon after, Carol walked in. The atmosphere shifted. Sophia could see the moment Carol realized something was different. Dave and Sophia were both there, and she could feel the weight of their stares. The room was thick with tension as Sophia locked eyes with Carol. Without hesitation, Sophia spoke, her voice calm but firm. I know what you've been doing, Carol. Carol's face drained of color. For a split second, she said nothing, her eyes darting to Dave, then back to Sophia. But then, the denial began. What are you talking about? Carol scoffed, trying to brush off the accusation. You're just making things up, Sophia. Sophia didn't back down. I'm not making anything up. I have the evidence. She pulled out the documents and laid them on the table. The private investigator's report, the photos, the bank statements, everything was there in black and white. The truth was undeniable. As Sophia revealed the findings, Carol's confident demeanor began to crack. Her eyes widened. Her breathing quickened. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. I didn't, Carol stammered, but the evidence was too much. She was cornered. The truth hit Carol like a freight train. She broke down, collapsing into tears as the weight of her actions settled in. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she sobbed, her voice barely a whisper. I was just trying to survive. I didn't think it would hurt anyone. But it had. The damage was done. Sophia stared at her, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Carol's emotional breakdown didn't erase the pain she had caused. For all the tears, Sophia knew this wasn't a simple mistake. It was calculated betrayal. The fallout from the confrontation was swift and harsh. Carol's marriage to Dave began to crumble almost immediately. The truth about her actions shattered the trust that had held their relationship together for years. Dave, devastated by the betrayal, couldn't bring himself to forgive her. Within days, they started discussing divorce. Dave was no longer the same man Sophia had known. He was broken, angry, and betrayed by the one person he thought he could trust. Meanwhile, Carol's reputation within the family was in ruins. No one could look at her the same way again. The lies she had spun over the years were exposed, and even her most loyal allies turned away from her. The family members who had once supported her began distancing themselves.
their trust shattered beyond repair.
For Sophia, the revelation brought a sense of relief. Finally, the truth was out. She had fought hard to expose the lies, and now she could begin to heal. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the deep sense of betrayal. She had never expected her family to turn against her, to allow someone to manipulate them for so long. Sophia's heart ached as she processed the events that had unfolded. Marjorie, too, had been shaken by the truth. She expressed regret for not seeing the signs earlier. She felt guilty for trusting Carol without question, but there was a sense of relief as well. The burden of suspicion had been lifted, and she finally knew the truth. As she looked at Sophia, she whispered a simple apology. "I'm sorry. I never realized how much you were sacrificing for me." The family was forever changed. The scars of betrayal ran deep, and the road to healing would be long. But one thing was certain: the truth had been revealed, and no one would ever look at Carol the same way again. In the aftermath of everything that had transpired, Sophia found herself at a crossroads. The emotional roller coaster had taken its toll: anger, heartbreak, betrayal, and then a sense of relief. She had been pushed to her limits, forced to confront painful truths about the people she thought she knew best. But despite everything, Sophia realized something important as she stood in the quiet of Marjorie's living room. She wasn't ready to give up on her family. She had spent so much time giving, sacrificing her own needs to care for Marjorie, to protect her from the chaos of Carol's actions. Now, more than ever, Sophia understood the weight of what family truly meant. The years of emotional strain, the financial burden, the feelings of being unappreciated, it all led her to this moment. Yet after everything, she could not turn her back on Marjorie. Despite the harshness of the betrayal and the fractures in the family, Sophia made the decision to stay and continue her role as Marjorie's caregiver. It wasn't a decision made lightly. She knew life would never be the same. The dynamics within the family had shifted irreparably, but there was a sense of closure in that decision. Sophia had fought for the truth, and now she could move forward, knowing that she had done everything she could to protect her loved ones. As she looked ahead, Sophia reflected on the lessons learned. Trust was fragile, family was complicated, and sacrifice didn't always come with recognition. But there was also strength and resilience, and she had proven that. "This is my family," she thought, "and I'll take care of them, no matter what." Even after everything Sophia had faced, uncertainty lingered. What would happen to Carol after the divorce? Would she change, or was she forever bound to her selfishness? The family was broken, but could it ever heal completely? As Sophia looked out the window, she couldn't shake the lingering questions. The consequences of hidden truths ran deep, leaving everyone involved to face the aftermath. The truth had been uncovered, but the story was far from over. The future was uncertain, and Sophia couldn't help but wonder: what other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be revealed?